Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into some really fascinating research from Dr. Sudhindra S.G. that looks at how we can totally transform education. And it's not by changing what we teach, but by revolutionizing how we teach it. So let's get right into it.
Okay, let's start with a little thought experiment. Just for a second, think back to your very first school trip. What pops into your head? Is it a specific fact you learned? Probably not. I bet it's the smell of the bus, or the sound of your friends laughing, or maybe the taste of that snack you bought. See? That feeling, right there, is the key to everything we're talking about today.
And that really gets to the heart of the challenge for every single educator out there. Our job isn't just about getting students to store information long enough to pass a test. It's about building knowledge that actually lasts a lifetime. The real goal is to get past temporary facts and create learning experiences that are truly unforgettable.
So how do we solve this forgetting problem? Well, first, we've got to understand what's happening inside our brains. It all comes down to the actual science of how we form memories.
You know, every single time we learn something new, neurons in our brain fire up and create these little connections, these tiny pathways. But here's the catch. These pathways aren't permanent. Not at all. Think of them like trails in a forest. If you don't walk them regularly, they get overgrown and they just disappear. They need to be reinforced.
So how do we make those trails into superhighways? How do we make them permanent? Well, this slide basically gives us the recipe. Repetition, of course, is a huge part of it, especially when you space it out over time. But the real game changer? It's multisensory engagement. And then you've got the secret ingredient, emotion. Emotion acts like superglue for our memories. You tie a fact to a feeling, and it is almost impossible to forget.
Right. So if fading neural pathways are the problem, then engaging our senses is definitely the solution. Let's dig into exactly how this creates learning that actually truly sticks.
Think about a really powerful memory from your own life for a second. Maybe it was your first big trip away from home, or a performance on stage, or even something like your first kiss. Why is that memory so vivid? Why is it still in crystal clear high definition even years later?
It's because those big memories weren't one-dimensional, were they? No way. All of your sensory channels were wide open. You remember what you saw, what you heard, what you felt, maybe even a specific smell or taste. And tying it all together was emotion. You were totally and completely engaged.
And this just nails the difference between learning some abstract fact and having a real, unforgettable experience. A chemistry formula on paper, it's just a bunch of symbols. But seeing that formula come to life in an experiment, seeing the flash, hearing the pop, smelling the reaction, that's not just information anymore. That's a memory.
Now here's the thing. This isn't some radical new idea. In fact, some of the greatest educators and innovators from all across the globe have understood this principle for a very long time. They built their entire philosophies around it.
Take the great Indian poet Rabindranath Tagore. He built his school, Shantiniketan, on this very idea. He believed education shouldn't be trapped inside a classroom. His students learned poetry under the shade of trees, not just studying nature, but being completely immersed in it.
And then you go over to Italy, where Dr. Maria Montessori designed her entire system around sensory learning. Her students don't just write down numbers on a page. They learn math by touching and arranging and physically moving objects around. It makes abstract ideas totally concrete.
And what about a modern master of memory making like Walt Disney? He was a genius at creating lasting experiences. He combined music, color, movement, and even smell. He famously pumped the aroma of fresh-baked bread onto Main Street, all to create these powerful multisensory memories.
And finally, back in India, the former president, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, used to tell this incredible story. To explain aerodynamics, his teacher didn't use a blackboard. He took the whole class to the seashore and had them throw paper planes into the wind. He turned a dry lesson into a totally unforgettable experience.
So let's bring this all together into a practical action plan. This isn't just theory, right? These are things that any educator can use to bring this whole philosophy into their classroom, starting tomorrow.
And you know what the best part is? You don't need expensive gadgets or a huge budget. This slide is basically a toolkit of simple, low-cost strategies. For instance, just change locations. Novelty itself triggers memory. Or use soundscapes. Imagine playing the sound of rain while reading a poem about a storm. Or how about bringing in different spices for a history lesson on ancient trade routes? Every single one of these 6 ideas is a simple but powerful way to engage the senses.
Okay, here's one more really cool technique. It's been used for centuries by memory champions and top students alike. It's called the method of loci, or sometimes the memory palace.
You basically take the information you need to learn and you mentally place each piece in a familiar spot, like the different rooms in your house. Then, to recall it, you just take a walk through your house in your mind.
And this is not just some ancient trick. It is being used right now in some of the most high-stakes situations you can imagine. A student who topped the incredibly difficult UPSC civil service exam in India said this was her exact method. She put every major historical event in a different room of her mental palace. To remember the whole timeline, she just walked through her house. It's a perfect blend of spatial and sensory memory.
So, when you really boil it all down, it comes to this. Our brains are not wired for dry lists of facts. They're wired for stories, for emotions, for sensory experiences. The most effective classrooms are not the quietest ones. They are the ones that are buzzing with activity, filled with curiosity, and just alive with sight, sound, and touch.
When we design our lessons to engage the senses, learning doesn't just become more effective, it becomes truly unforgettable. It's a simple change in how we think, but it has a profound impact. So the question I want to leave you with is this: how can you make your next lesson just a little more alive?